the comeback story. I think that's the bottom line of God. There's a comeback.
There's always a comeback if we're willing to do the work for it.
Yeah. I've been very aware of cancel culture lately, and that's been coming up a lot. And so we talked about how we could speak about celebrities or people that were popular, but we all have very different ideas and opinions on people who are popular in the mainstream. Wendy just wants to talk about Jane Austen all the time. So
what's wrong with Jane Austen?
Nothing.
I love Jane Austen.
Nothing, but things have happened since then. That's all.
I look, yeah, I'm in the big Jane Austen group. I'm a huge fan. I will always be there.
I do love Jane Austen, and I love that it's become really popular again as well. Like, I think that's what's
never
interesting.
Stopped being popular.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Stopped being popular, but okay.
Can we share what you guys used to do?
You mean the watch parties?
Yes.
So yeah. Oh, wow. This is taking a turn.
Let's just go with it.
Okay. So they used to have in the Facebook group watch parties, and I would watch with Jane Austenites around the world at the same time. We would watch our vintage Jane Austen movies. Rachel came over one day. I was at the end of one of our watch parties, and she goes, "Do you have tears?" I said, "No." I did. And I said, "They're canceling the watch parties. I'm so sad. And you've just come in at a sad, sad moment." And then she recorded me.
Oh, yeah.
She recorded me with tears. And I went, "That's so mean." But I love the watch parties, and I still obviously am a part of the group. But I love reading them. It's lovely.
It's really fascinating to me how like Facebook and all these social mediums have created spots for these different, I would say, subcultures. Like knitting has become a thing again. There's groups for anything in the world that you want to kind of engage with as a hobby or something that you're interested in. I love that there's a place for that. And you guys are like sending like cards to each other and stuff at Christmas.
Yeah. So I did. I did Jane Austen pen pal cards, Christmas cards this year, and mine were a little bit homemade, and it was
It's
great.
Just sweet. It's nostalgic.
Yeah, it's sweet.
I think when people talk about the theme of celebrity, I think there's always the dark side of celebrity, but I don't think we can ignore the fact that they have an impression on our culture. They impact the way we're raised. They impact the way we see the world. They're around unless you just don't engage at all with online or social media. And so what we wanted to talk about today, though, was some kind of cool comeback stories, if you will. And I have one person in mind, which I think we all have kind of in mind. And you may think, what do celebrities have to do with redemption? But I guess we want to talk about the positive side here of stories that we've seen that are really inspiring, real stories. And I guess it gives us hope as humans. And in terms of redemption, that is the story of Jesus. That is the story of faith. If you're to ask what is the difference between Christianity and every other religion, it is that there is a redemption story. That is the core of it. That as people, we have sinned, and Jesus came and he redeemed us through what he did on the cross. And so that's the core of it. Now, what that looks like and what that plays out in culture is really interesting to me. And I think we can be really cruel to people when they aren't doing well, when the fall from grace happens, when people are at the top of their game, they're great. But when something happens, cancel culture has gotten really ugly. And it's in fact, from what I can see, the exact opposite of how we're meant to act as Christians. But anyway, that's kind of those are my thoughts on it. But where should we start? Because I think we can all start with the one person and one story that we talk about quite a bit in our family.
We all love equally, I feel, Robert Downey Jr.
You would think he was part of the family.
I feel he is. He just
I
doesn't
think
know
Mom
it yet.
had said he could be your brother. Well, sure. Yeah.
We can go there.
I'll take that.
I'll
Sure.
take that. Yeah.
In whatever capacity he wants to be part of the family, he's more than welcome.
I loved him in Hearts and Souls. Like when I saw him in that movie,
Favorites.
that's when I went, "Who are you? You're the guy."
He's a standout, isn't he?
He is.
In every
yeah.
film, no matter how. I think everyone has the kid from the 80s, but I like you. I thought in the 90s, I actually was really impressed at some of those rom-coms that he did because he was so talented.
Yes.
Very talented actor and always just brought something really interesting to characters. And as an actor, I found him very impressive. But also, we were aware that there was this other side to fame that he experienced, and it was very public to what he kind of went through. If you don't know Robert Downey Jr., most people know him as Iron Man now, and which is a great series, and he's very popular. But before that, there was another story. And the story was he had some serious issues with drugs, a lot of issues, and he ended up going to prison for some time. I think for 2 years, I believe. I don't know how long it
I don't
was.
know the exact.
We should fact check.
We should
that.
fact check that.
Yeah,
but
we don't. But
it didn't just
he
end up.
spent some time there.
Yeah, it wasn't just a tabloid story.
Yeah.
It ended up with him actually going to prison. And most people, after he got out of prison, no one really wanted to give him a shot at anything.
Even how people were speaking about him wasn't positive. Like
No.
there was no, oh, he's going through a tough time. It was like, well, it was so unkind.
He
No
was
grace.
made
There
no
was
grace.
no grace.
He was made fun of. He was slandered. His name was like smeared. No one in Hollywood wanted to touch him for any other movies. Like he really was like out, and it was really hard because he was building this wonderful career for himself and a real name, and then it was just gone. So.
I mean, you'd think we've been at his parties. You think that we have a really deep conviction. But I also think the time was very different, that if you broke those rules socially, that you were out. Nowadays, it's a bit different. I think people are a lot more kinder. Oh, they're in rehab, or, they're taking a beat or this or that. What back then, it wasn't like that at all. If you broke the rules of Hollywood, you were out. And he broke, it seemed to be, every rule there was. And not easy to work with. I think it came out in a lot of different ways. But I could be wrong about this, but I remember one of his first things that he did work-wise was Elton John hired him for a music video.
It was apparently the only gig he could get.
Yeah.
And I have to say, not that you agree about people's politics and things, and I love that, but not love that, but like that. I love that Elton gave him a shot, that he extended grace, that he had his own issues at one time. And when he was in a position to give back, he was extending grace in a public way. And I always think as Christians, I can learn from that.
Yeah.
I'm so quick to judge. And that's not, and obviously I've always admired and loved Robert Downey Jr. But I loved the fact that Elton was giving him another shot too. Go on.
No, I think I agree with you. And sometimes as Christians, I get most humbled by people who aren't technically labeled as Christians.
100%.
They give the most grace sometimes. They are the ones who actually really give the example of what redemption is meant to look like. It is humbling at times.
Yeah.
And I think the church sometimes, and I say the church, take your pick. It can be really easy just to cast out. You've done this, you're done. We don't want to have anything to do with you. And they're always like, obviously, if you're not living in a way that is, lined up to the Bible and its values, especially in leadership, there has to be, a step down. There has to be
There needs to be. And I think we all agree with that.
We all agree with that.
But there comes a point of, does the punishment fit the crime too?
Yeah.
I remember Johnny Cash saying, how many times do I have to keep saying I'm sorry for something that I did for so many years ago? And that always stuck with me because yet again, it was the Christian saying that. And he's another man I love too. I love Johnny Cash in the way of, especially near the end of his life, he just would call things out, but in the right way. And I mean in the older part of his life.
And I think it can be really easy, whether it's Christians or the church and the media, it's easy to hold on to a story. That's what you do. You hold on to the story that's been there for 10 years, and we can do that for people as well. And I think with Robert Downey Jr., he was given a shot, which is really lovely. And then we know him now as Iron Man.
Because Mel Gibson and him did a movie together, Air America. And that was his first movie back on screen after everything. But it was Mel Gibson who said, I won't do a movie unless you let Robert Downey Jr. co-host, be on the
And
movie.
what happened years later was Mel Gibson
That's right.
had some moments, not just one, multiple.
And it was very public.
Very public. And not something the publicist can talk around.
Oh, my goodness.
His career was done,
Oh.
you seemed. And I remember there was an event that he was getting an award for. And Robert Downey Jr. came out to give it and he said, those of you who've never sinned, cast your first stone.
Yeah.
It's so easy to put people up on, on stools and go, oh, they're so special or this or that. Everyone is human. And we've all got our stuff we have to deal with. And in the public eye, it can be excruciating going through that type of scrutiny. But at the same time, they take the medicine, and that's what I appreciated about Robert. And sometimes in the Christian world, are you willing to take the medicine? Are you willing to go through what redemption requires? Redemption isn't just, I'm saved, it's great. Redemption is go to rehab. Redemption is get the help, go to therapy.
It's messy.
It's messy.
messy.
It's
Do
ugly.
your 12 steps.
Do the steps. This isn't turning. Wow.
I'm just saying.
So many. Very helpful. Yes, very helpful. These are important. We're not experts in that, so please, if you have issues with any of this stuff, there's some steps. But it's not just say a prayer and move on, is it?
No way. No way.
And okay, so when we look at redemption from a Christian perspective and what that is meant to look like, what comes up to you in terms of, the Bible?
The prodigal son. I mean, I love that story, and it's funny, the older I get and the more that you read the same stories, it just hits you in a different way. When you see the redemption stories play out in real life, as they do, because life is happening all around us and life is messy, that how we respond to that. So how we responded to each brother, for me, reads so different now. I used to, I'd go, well, of course the other brother would feel that way. He stayed and he was the dependable one or whatever. And now I read it so differently that there was a little bit of self-righteousness there. And I can relate to that a little bit. I'd love to say my first response when I hear things is the correct one, is the godly one, but it's not. I'm still working on that. And it's actually why we all love a comeback. We all love a redemption story. And that's why I love that. And I think that's all I'll say.
I love the moment with the prodigal son, how he's in the pen with the pigs, and that's his lowest moment. And that's when he realizes, I just need to go home.
Yeah.
And then I love the father's reaction, not just when he embraces him and he hugs him, but he says, get my finest robe, put my ring on him, my son is home. And I just loved the son getting the courage to go home, but that was all he had to do. And if the father would have accepted him at any time. But it was just, I love that. Like he had to go to his lowest point in order to go home. And the dad was always waiting for him.
Do y'all remember that song, When God Ran? Was
Sing
it
it,
Ray
Wendy.
Balls? I am not a singer, but y'all remember it from the 80s? No.
I was barely born in the 80s.
Okay. You know what? It's worth looking up, but it's about that moment. The
Aw.
prodigal son.
Can you just say a few words?
No,
from
I
it? Like,
cannot.
listen,
I cannot.
just
But I
baritone.
want you
Maybe
guys to
hum it.
look it up,
We will look it up.
and because it's powerful.
Well,
I'm not going to
I
sing it.
feel like I've been gypped, Wendy, because I haven't heard you sing it.
I mean, you've mentioned it.
You
now we don't
mentioned
know
it.
the
Now
song.
it feels like a
Are you
responsibility.
serious? That is so mean. Almost as mean as filming me when I found out the J. Also,
Look,
parties
we
was.
were working,
Almost.
first of all. I didn't just come up and be like, oh, you're crying. Ha, ha, ha. That was a
It's
gift.
true. I was working.
That was a gift. Dad, I thought something, the thing is, I thought something was truly wrong in that moment. I was actually
It
concerned
was.
because I was on the phone with the client and I'm like, are you okay? Wendy's like, it was just weird. And then when she told me, I just started laughing and then I started recording her tears. Yes, I did when I realized
And then she
what it
shared
was.
it in
I shared it in a
client
group, in our
I was
client
like-
group. It was awesome. Everyone, again, authenticity. People relate.
And she was like, Wendy, what's happening? And I was like, nothing. Anyway. it was
Well,
nothing.
we digress. But going back to, I love the fact that like there's always a couple of points of the prodigal son story that we can all relate to. And at different moments of my life, I've related to different moments. I never thought it'd be the prodigal son. I was like, oh, I'm probably more brother. It's true, but I've had different moments where I've been both. But I love that you've both related to something. You're like, I love that all he had to do was go home. That was his realization. And that you, with the older brother, of going, actually, there's a self-righteous here because I think my actions prove my love, prove how worthy I am of love and acceptance. And again, it kind of speaks to the heart of what the faith is, isn't it? Because you can't action your way into God's grace. You can't, it doesn't matter really. He doesn't, it's nice, but that's not what counts us as worthy, is it?
It's not works based. Grace isn't from works.
Yeah.
I think Romans, I don't know. I feel like that's in Romans.
We should fact check.
We should fact check. It's a few fact checks. Oh my gosh. Look, I hope you've enjoyed going down this random road with us. But these are the conversations we have, just because it's a bit of life, a bit of faith, and a bit of Robert Downey Jr., and there's nothing wrong with that. And Iron Man, what a great series.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Especially the first one.
Especially the first one. And I think going back to him, the comeback story, I think that's the bottom line of God. There's a comeback.
There's always a comeback if we're willing to do the work for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you're willing to do the work and walk through the door, there's always something more for you. And so I don't know whether you've been through something or maybe you're stuck in that space of I've made too many mistakes. I can't get back from this and I just have to stick with where I'm at, or you're punishing yourself for it. That's not what God does. Doesn't mean there's not consequences. There are consequences. We have to deal with those consequences. We have to accept them. We have to surrender to that. But after that, there's always an awesome comeback. And I think Iron Man, amazing what that has done, not just for his career, but I love seeing where he's at now, because I don't even know if the man's a Christian. I have no idea, but I find it very inspiring to go from see where it going from that to that. And I think that's just, to me, a really inspiring story of redemption.
And it's just a great message, because it's just, you're never too far gone.
Yeah.
Ever. And I think that's important to always hear and keep in your mind.
I think, I know Mom used to say if I was going through something, and she would say, just the name of Jesus is enough. And I think we sometimes forget how powerful that is. Just to even say it or to think it in your heart and your mind, that is the most powerful thing you can do in that moment if you're not sure of what the next step is. And there's redemption even in that moment. I think once his name is spoken. So thank you for sharing, sisters. This has been really great. I hope you've enjoyed some of this. I hope it has inspired you, and maybe it's given you a bit of an insight into some of the things we talk about when the mics are off. But also just to remind you that God is everywhere. He's in every medium. He is in everywhere you are, he is. And so you don't have to look hard for him. He is there. And so we just wanted to encourage you today that your story of redemption, if you need one, it's right there for you today. It really is. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Much love.